So we'll call this one emotional health for dummies. For the past year and a half, 2 years, I've been focusing on who I am as a person, trying to become more self-aware, um, trying to become more emotionally intelligent. Growing up, I wasn't really taught a lot of emotional intelligence, which is, nobody's fault. The people that raised me did the best they could with what they had. That's kind of the story of parenting, I think. I don't have kids myself, but I've seen a lot of people raise a lot of kids, and I know my parents did the best they could with what they had. And um, anyway, as a result, I grew up in a place that doesn't teach emotional intelligence. It doesn't teach emotional health. It teaches you to pray away every problem, which is fine. There's something to be said for prayer and meditation, and there's something to be said for that. But there's also something to be said with taking control of your emotional intelligence and taking control of your emotional health. None of that is ever pushed. It's always, in fact, it's almost pushed the opposite direction, which I'm sure this is going to offend a lot of people that live over there if they ever watch this, episode. But what I found was that it just wasn't cutting it. I was unhappy with things that I was doing in myself, the things that I was saying, the things that I was thinking. Why am I having intrusive thoughts all the time? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why do I constantly respond to people a certain way when there's no merit for it, reason for it? Some of this plays into or is affected by being a little bit on the autism spectrum. I am comparatively high functioning to other people that have it worse off, that are closer to ASD. But I definitely do have a lot of the symptoms of that and deal with that, as far as just the incessant noise in my head when I am on carbohydrates, when I am on coffee, the laziness brought on by carbohydrates, the reactionary, the way I am very reactionary towards people, when there's no reason to be, where I take things very personally, or I get very upset for no reason, or take things personally where I could be, I could be justified in taking them personally, but they don't really matter. Anyway, all that to say, it's been a process, and it's still a process, and I'm still learning, and I'm still growing. That's kind of the point of life. And the Strong Fit group has helped tons with looking inside. It's called interoception, not introspection, interoception. There's a difference there. So interoception is trying to feel your heartbeat, trying to feel your gut rhythm, trying to feel the different rhythms in your body and focus on what your body is trying to tell you instead of just reacting to the world around you. Usually in the past, what I would do was I would put everything outside. I would blame other people. I would do all that. It's all about everybody else. I'm not the problem. Yeah, I've done stuff wrong, but it's not my problem. It's this person did that to me, right? Not taking responsibility for my stuff. And so learning emotional health, learning emotional intelligence is something that has been a game changer for me. It's made me a more palatable person. It's made me more enjoyable to be around. Granted, people that already have an opinion of you, chances are they're not going to change that, and that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what other people think of you, unless you can use it as a gauge to see if you're on the right track. And some of that is how you affect people when you're talking to people that you don't know and people that don't know you. What's their first take? What's their first impression of you? And then as you get to know them more, does that change or is that the same? You grow up around certain group of people, and they're going to know you from the time you're a kid until the time you're whatever you are when you stop being around them. And their opinion's pretty much set. There's a pretty solid story that they've told themselves, you are this way. And where I was living, I even told myself, I am this way. I am not a good person. I am not a nice person. I am not this. I am not that. I'm not the other thing. And got into a lot of self degrading talk, self degrading, convincing myself that this is the way life was going to be, and not realizing that that was all on me. That what other people said about me was fine. They can say what they need to say about me, but or what they feel they need to say about me. But what I believe about myself is up to me. The story I tell myself is up to me. Anyway, the books that I did the reviews on, I've been reading those and more like them, that I will do reviews on those as well. But those have helped me a lot with my emotional intelligence, my emotional stuff. And it seems like I'm just picking up stuff that now that a lot of other people just get naturally, which goes back to, if you have the training when you're young, it helps. If you don't, you have to search for it yourself, which I'm glad I'm looking for it myself. But I wish I had started earlier. Anyway, all that to say, it's worth looking at who you are as a person, not in a critical sense like I hate myself because I'm a certain way, but in a lot more of a introspective or interoceptive way, where you look at who you are and why you're saying the things you're saying, because there's a reason behind it. You feel a certain way either about that person or about the situation, or it triggered you in such a way that you're just like, man, I really didn't like what they said, and why don't I like what they said? Well, a lot of it is that I'm taking it personally, and it affects something in me where I feel insecure, and it goes, right? Clear communication without adding emotion to it is something I've struggled with. Usually adding anger or intensity to the conversation instead of just being clear and concise with what I need, or expressing softer emotions, like being able to cry when it's appropriate to cry, being able to release emotions like that. That's always been difficult for me to do. A lot of that was the way the society I was raised in. It was very boomer, stiff upper lip, we don't show emotion. And then at the same time, if you can't show emotion, you're a bad person, and we need to mess with your mind a little bit and have you work in both sides of the thing. So there's a lot of that went on, and I'm trying to kind of separate myself from the ideas that were taught to me for years and years and years and years, and realize that those may not be what normal people do. And a lot of that was manipulation that was very deep-seated and whatever. We can get into that later. But all that to say, it's been a great journey. It's been a very a tough journey, but a very enjoyable journey, very rewarding to take responsibility for my emotional health and my emotional intelligence. I feel like I'm just starting out. So if you guys have any suggestions of books to read that helped you, or resources that you would suggest for all of you emotionally erudite people out there, I would take it. Put it in the comments. I'd love it. But for anybody who's on the fence about whether it's important to tackle this stuff, it is important. The younger you can do it, the better. You'll be a better person. You'll impact lives in a positive way if you can become responsible for your own stuff and take responsibility for your emotional health. I'm 30. I'm a little late to the game. I wish I had got to it sooner. But the journey of self-awareness and understanding yourself is the road to enlightenment, from what I'm reading and what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing. I'm really, really enjoying the journey, and I hope you guys jump in. I hope you guys take the challenge. It will challenge you, and it will challenge you to do things that you may not want to do, to face yourself in ways that you may not want to face. But definitely important and definitely worth the time.